We're working with a higher side of our own personality, and we do it unconsciously. And intuition is one of the most valuable.
The sixth sense can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
One of the very important success principles that Hill wrote about was the sixth sense. And you know, I'm of the opinion it's not a sense at all. It's a higher faculty that as humans we have. All the other little creatures operate with 5 senses. We do too. We see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Now we've talked about this before in another principle, but it's important we bring it up again because as long as we live in a physical body, correspond with the material world, we're going to use our 5 senses. But if we're going to go on beyond this physical world, if we're going to get into the universal side of our personality, the spiritual side, the energy side of our personality, we're going to have to use a higher faculty. And we have these higher faculties. We've got perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, and intuition. Now, intuition is that mental faculty that gives us the ability to tap in to universal intelligence. It gives us the ability to read vibrations of another person. We say this is psychic. A person that uses their intuitive factor is psychic. Well, the truth is everybody's psychic. Psyche is a Greek word for mind. And what we're using is one of our higher faculties of the mind, our intuitive factor. The intuitive factor gives you the ability to pick up the energy from another person or pick up the energy from universal intelligence and then translate it into an intellectual level, into words in our consciousness. In other words, it comes in the form of a feeling. You don't pick up words, you pick up feelings, you pick up vibrations. And that's really what the sixth sense does, as Hill was talking about it, or your intuitive factor does. When you're with another person, you feel their energy. If you're with another person, just like that, you feel there's a mood shift. How do you know there's a mood shift? It's your intuitive factor that's telling you that. You feel them, all of a sudden, they become fairly sad. They may have a smile on their face, but you know something's disturbing them. How do you know that? It's your vibration, or their vibration, and you're picking it up and you're feeling it. One of the most common questions I'm asked in programs that I run is, how do you develop your intuition? Mine is fairly highly developed. It's not an accident that I've decided a long time ago, and I started to develop it. I think most people that work with groups of people all the time are fairly intuitive. I think there's a lot of police officers that are very intuitive, customs agents that are very intuitive. They're dealing with the public and they're looking for something that you just don't see on the surface. So they pick it up and they become very intuitive. Well, you develop it by giving all of your attention to another person. Most of us are very self-conscious. Our energy is inverted. We're thinking of ourselves. Does she like me? Does he like me? But then it'll take on a power of its own, and it gives life action and guidance to you. And it just keeps driving you. This idea of persistence cannot be given too much importance because it's that one quality inside that's going to keep you going. You're going to run into all sorts of discouraging experiences. Napoleon Hill was told that by Andrew Carnegie when he first set out on this mission. Now here's a guy that was starting out, a young reporter, and he was told by his mentor that you could do better than I'm doing. Now, if that's where all of this philosophy originated with Andrew Carnegie, and then it was studied and passed on to us by Napoleon Hill, I think we should pay attention to it. Here's a poor young man that's going to go past the wealthiest man in the world. And he did. He accomplished more. Why? Because he kept giving himself the proper affirmations. But he wouldn't have done that had he not had the proper goal. You see, he sold himself on the idea that he could do something and he had absolutely no idea how it was going to happen. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to pick the target that really is important to you. Otherwise, you'll never develop the persistence. And he said, you've got to turn it into a habit. Now let's think of what a habit is for a moment. A habit is an idea that's planted in your subjective mind. And it's planted so often, bang, it automatically takes over and it automatically expresses itself without any conscious thought. Habits make us. They also break us. And when you develop the habit of persistence, the idea of slowing down, the idea of stopping, it just doesn't enter your mind. You're going to keep going, it doesn't matter how tough it is. I can think of so many times in my life when everything in me wanted to quit, but I just couldn't do it because I had formed the habit of persistence. You see, I took these 13 principles, I took them super serious after I started to get into it. Now, I was using this philosophy and I was winning. It was like a game. I really didn't understand what I was doing. But then one day I had to sit down and ask myself, what the heck is happening? And as I started to study this in depth, I realized that all successful people were following all of these principles. Whether they were consciously aware of it or not was another thing. But I never, ever met anyone who was very successful that was not also persistent, that followed their path. Now, do you know, this is something that you really want to study and study in depth. Get this, study into it. Do you know, a lot of people talk about luck, lucky breaks. The only break that you're ever going to be able to depend upon is the one you give yourself. There's no such thing as a lucky break. Somebody asked Hill about that one time. He suggested that he got a lucky break with Carnegie. He said it was no lucky break that took 25 years of in-depth research without being paid, without, the struggles that he had. And I guess when somebody looked at him and thought it was a lucky break, he probably thought they obviously really don't know what they're talking about. There isn't any such thing as luck. There's focus, there's goals, there's dreams, and there's principles that you have to follow if you're going to win. People talk about being in the right place at the right time. You got to be aware that you're in the right place at the right time. And then you've got to follow all these principles. You've got to incorporate them into your life. And persistence is an absolute prerequisite. He said, without it, none of the others really matter because you're not going to keep on going. So forget the idea of the lucky break. Create one for yourself. That's how you're going to get the breaks. Think of the people you know who are always struggling. Everyone's surrounded by them. What are they missing? First of all, they're missing a target. They don't know where they're going. They're buffered here and there just by whatever's going on. Conditions and circumstance control their life. They start and they stop. There's no such thing as persistence. But we have to back up. You see, when you start thinking about this quality that he's talking here, his 8th principle, you're talking about something that is the outgrowth of something else. It starts out with a want. You've got to really want it. And if you know how to get it, you don't need persistence. There's no growth to that. It's got to be something you want, and you turn the want into a desire. That desire is fueled by faith. You don't wonder if it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. You just don't know how it's going to happen. And when you've got all those qualities and you've got them all blended together, see, all these 13 principles, you have a difficult time talking about one without bringing the other in. It's because the whole universe operates by law and there is only one power. And all the laws jive in together. They meld together just like the colors of a rainbow. So you've got to really study these principles and take a look at them and understand they're all required. You can't grab one or two and say, I'm going to make it on this. It doesn't happen that way. And so when you see a person, they're starting and they're stopping and they're going so far and they hit a block on the road and they get discouraged and quit, they're missing some part of the puzzle. They're not going after what they want. They haven't got the desire. They don't have the faith, so they're not going to develop their persistence. When you have this persistence, you're going to keep going come hell or high water. Nothing is going to stop you. Absolutely nothing. You'll see this in all the lives of people that have accomplished something. Study the Wright brothers. I've studied them. Study Sir Edmund Hillary. I had the good fortune of working with him on 3 or 4 different occasions. The only difference I could see in him than anybody else was his size. He's a big man, but he was persistent. He was going to get to the top of Mount Everest. He didn't get there the first time. He was a beekeeper from Auckland, New Zealand. He went in 1951. He didn't make it. He failed. He went in 1952. He failed again. Everybody thought he was crazy going back because prior to that, anybody that really tried it, they either failed or died trying. But in 1953, he and Tenzing Norgay stood right on top of the world. Do you know there's been 1,000 people do it since then? But he was the first. Without persistence, no one does it. It's in every person that's ever succeeded. Study Edison. Only 3 years of schooling, just 3 years of schooling. And look what he accomplished. He was persistent. It's been estimated that he tried to build a light 3,000 different times. And he said he didn't see those as failures. He said there was 3,000 steps to creating the incandescent light. But it was persistence that kept him going. See, he had the dream in his mind, he had the vision, and he had fallen in love with it. That is absolutely essential. If you're going to develop persistence into a habit, you've got to make sure that you've got the want. You've got to really want whatever it is. You do not have to know how to get it. You've got to turn it into a desire. You've got to feel it beating inside. And then you're going to develop the persistence. And you're going to find that it's going to happen. One day you're going to look and you're going to realize you've reached the goal. You know, a funny thing about it, sometimes you get into such a habit of working towards the goal, sometimes you're past it before you even realize it. And the goal is something you see in retrospect. You actually did it. But persistence is essential. It's like Hill said right in the beginning. He said there may be no heroic connotation to the word, but the quality is to the character of the human, like what carbon is to steel. Make certain that you develop persistence into a habit, but it'll only become a habit if you've got the others all lined up. Every failure in life carries with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. There's something good in everything. Nothing's all good, nothing's all bad. Everything just is. It's what we make it. And every time you stumble, there's something good in it. I can share something with you. I wrote a book a number of years ago, You Were Born Rich. A lot of people laughed at the title, and they said, well, you were born rich, were you? The truth is everyone's born rich. Most people are just a little short of money. We've got deep reservoirs of talent and ability within us. When I wrote the book, I wrote the entire thing by hand. And but if you're going to mastermind, you've got to get people that are in harmony. And when you come together, it's like you're bringing all this energy together.
Plans are inert and useless without sufficient power to translate them into action. The mastermind may be defined as coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose.
Andrew Carnegie pointed out that the accumulation of great fortunes calls for power. And power is acquired through highly organized and intelligently directed specialized knowledge. He also said the person who accumulates the fortune doesn't have to have the knowledge. Well, Napoleon Hill found that if you analyze the record of anyone who had accumulated great fortune, or many who have accumulated modest fortunes, they've either consciously or unconsciously employed the mastermind formula. He said great power can be acquired through no other principle. Now think about that for a moment. Masterminding. It's the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people to the attainment of a definite purpose. But if you're going to mastermind, you've got to get people that are in harmony. And they've all got to be focused on that one purpose. This is vitally important. This isn't a brainstorming group. This isn't a brainstorming idea. This is a group of people who have all come together to work towards one specific end. Now, Carnegie said he knew nothing about the manufacturing or marketing of steel, and he said he had no desire to learn anything about it. And yet that's where he earned his fortune. But he earned his fortune because he got people who understood what he didn't understand. He got people that had the knowledge that he needed to accomplish the end he wanted to accomplish. He did not have to have the knowledge that's required for the accumulation of the fortune. he could get that through the aid of his mastermind group. Now, masterminding is a very important part of all Hill's work. And it's something that's used by a few people today, but it's not generally used. Now, I have been using masterminding for a long, long time. And I have 2 or 3 mastermind groups that I work with. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. And I don't meet them all the time. Now, he recommends that if you have your mastermind group, you should meet a couple of times a week. That's not convenient for everybody. But you do want to meet on some kind of a regular basis. And when you come together, it's like you're bringing all this energy together. It's like bringing a group of batteries together. Each battery has power, but you put them all together, it's got a lot more power. People open the trunk of their car and they have these jumper cables and they hook up one battery to another and bang, the car's going. They get the energy from someone else to get their car started. Well, you know, in a mastermind group, you get the energy from other people. You can get the energy from a group to really surge ahead with an idea, to move on to a much higher frequency, to bring in a lot better ideas and bigger ideas. Now, Hill recommended that when you start a mastermind meeting, there's certain principles that are followed. Let me share these principles with you. These are mastermind principles. You begin every mastermind meeting by reading these mastermind principles. Each person reads these out loud, one at a time. Each one has meaning. They start by, I release. I release myself to the mastermind because I am strong when I have others to help me. Now, what do we mean by that? You've got to release your mind to the mastermind. You quit being an individual and you become one of the group. You're in harmony with that group. You become one with the group. So you release yourself to the mastermind. I believe the combined intelligence of the mastermind creates a wisdom far beyond my own. Well, just a shallow awareness would help you really understand that. You get a group of people together that are all in harmony and they're all focused on the same thing, you're going to have a lot of power that you wouldn't have as an individual. So don't try and go alone. Get a group of people together that are really interested in helping you get to where you want to go, and you're helping them get to where they want to go. It says, I understand I will more easily create positive results in my life when I am open to looking at things, at myself, my problems, my opportunities from another's point of view. Well, you know, perception is a great thing. Perception is one of our higher faculties. And when we help other people and they help us, what we're doing is we're shifting our perception. We're looking at things from a totally different perspective. And when we do that, we see things that we may never see had we not done that. So the perspective that you're going to gain in a mastermind goes so far beyond what you can gain on your own. I decide to release my desire totally in trust to the mastermind, and I am open to accepting new possibilities. In other words, the protectionist idea goes out the window. You're not competing, you're creating. And you're making a decision here to turn your idea over to the mastermind. You're going to expose this beautiful idea you've got, this great idea, this idea that's going to take you to where you want to go. You're going to share it. You're going to lay it right out there for everybody to see. And you're trusting these people. That's why you're doing that. I forgive. I forgive myself for mistakes I have made. I also forgive others who have hurt me in the past so I can move into the future with a clean slate. Now, you might have had words with somebody in the mastermind group last week, maybe last month. They may have heard words with you. You've got to let all that go. You cannot take any of that energy into the mastermind group because that will just spoil everything. There'll be no harmony. There'll be no resonance. You'll be bouncing around on different frequencies. It'd be like turning on 6 different radio stations and trying to make sense out of it. You can't get any sense. Everybody's got to be on the same station, listening to the same music. So anything that was done in the past that hurt yourself or hurt the other person, you've got to forgive it. You let it go. That's why this is one of the principles to start out with. Forgive means to let go of completely, abandon, totally let it go. Then I ask the mastermind to hear what I really want, my goals, my dreams, and my desires. And I hear my mastermind partner supporting me in my fulfillment. Well, it's like sharing the idea. You open yourself up completely. There's nothing hidden. You're transparent. They're transparent. This is the way you create the harmony. And this is how you create the power. When you all come together, that's real power. In fact, Carnegie said that is the only way to create power. There is no other way. And he said the accumulation of great fortunes calls for power. Power is acquired through highly organized and intelligently directed specialized knowledge. That's what the mastermind group is doing. They're bringing this together. Not one, not two, but the group. When two or more are gathered together, there I am also. You create a third automatically. You create more power. I accept. I know, relax, accept, believing that the working power of the mastermind will respond to my every need. I am grateful knowing this is so. That's an attitude of confidence. You know what you're doing. You know what's happening. And you're going in there expecting the best. You've prepared yourself. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's playing the same game. They're letting go. They're becoming transparent. They're moving on to the same frequency. It's like you're turning everybody onto the same station. Everybody's listening to the same music, and things start to click. That's when you create the power and things gel. Then there's a dedication and covenant. I now have a covenant in which it is agreed that the mastermind shall supply me with an abundance of all things necessary to live a success-filled and happy life. I dedicate myself to be of maximum service to God, to my fellow human beings, to live in a manner that will set the highest example for others to follow, and to remain an open channel of God's will. I go forth with a spirit of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. Now, what is God's will? A lot of people ask that. God's will is greater good. God is always for expansion and fuller expression. Spirit's always for expansion and fuller expression. God's will is greater good. That's what the mastermind is doing. It's creating greater good. I've created a couple of companies with people through masterminding, and they've been very successful, earned a lot of money. We've had a lot of fun.